etc. She goes for a run almost every morning.
I know she gets up early because I get texts sometimes that really early. I'm like, it's cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me.
We're farm people, but then the paint gets picked up there at the bus stop. The bus stop's right there at about 7:50, and
right.
Sarah then goes for a run, and by then I'm in full work mode.
Yeah.
Typically.
I hear you. All right, throw this over here. Well, it's running, so we can start talking at any time. I'll edit out the any personal one.
Or not, whatever.
But I thought it'd be good. When we were talking about it last time we did the podcast, I thought it would be really cool if we did the wine pairing.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, we could really do the wine pairing, you know what I mean? Because that's something that people always struggle with, and we have, when I say stretch it out, I don't mean rudely from a visual perspective as far as people having to suffer through hours and hours and hours, but rather to stretch it out and say, okay, let's spend a day on whites, let's spend a day on rosés, let's spend a day on, and then Diane came up with an idea. Maybe we also do, an experimental, how to experiment with wine and tastings, and how do you know if you're, how do you know before you start whether or not you're going to be successful?
That's a good question.
Right? And so, because people, how many times have you gotten a bottle of wine out and paired it with something and it didn't work?
Oh, I tell you, when we do these wine and chocolate pairings here, it's 4 wines and 4 chocolates, but I try. You think, I'm literally not joking, we will have 15 different chocolates and I will open every bottle of wine that we have available to us to try and find the right matches. Because, these pairings, people pay money for them, and I want it to be really good. It's funny, we're talking here this morning, we're about to do a cupcake pairing, which I have, I'm excited about, but I'm nervous about, because it's hard to pair really sweet stuff with dry wines. It can be done, we do it with the chocolates, but and Sarah was just saying, well, we got this cupcake maker making 6 different kinds of cupcakes for us, and obviously we'll open up a bunch of wines and try them, and then assuming I can get them to pair, then we will do a cupcake pairing. I think we're going to do it in April, but I got to make sure that the pairing is going to work. So yes, there's definitely some rules, but there's also some experimentation required too.
Yeah, I guess everybody. So what we have to do, I think, is as part of our presentation, is show people that there is a trial and error, but there's also a formula.
Oh, for sure.
And so that not you just know certain things aren't going to work.
Yeah.
So don't bother.
Well,
kind of thing.
For sure.
Not rudely don't bother.
No, but it's for sure. The pairing world is really either a congruent or a complementary pairing. Like a complementary pairing would be a buttery Chardonnay with some buttered chicken dish, or maybe seafood soaked in butter, right? It's just super obvious. A contrasting pairing is when you take something really spicy, like Asian food, and you pair that with like a semi-dry Riesling. The sweetness in the wine kind of calms down the spice, so that's a contrasting pairing. And so that's, I think, what makes it confusing for a lot of people is you don't realize there's 2 different ways to play it.
Exactly. Last night I had, Diane was hankering for seafood, so we went to George and Sons.
Oh yeah, no, it's an awesome place.
Okay,
so happy, such a happy place.
I know, we love those guys. And I got salmon for her, and got shrimp for me. So boiling shrimp with Old Bay seasoning, and we got salmon on the grill with just like lime, salt, and pepper. That's it for the salmon on the grill. And so I said to her, do you want to do a rosé or do you want to do a Pinot Noir?
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, let's do the Pinot Noir. And the Pinot Noir we got from the West Coast when we were out there, and it paired really, really well. So that's what I'm trying to, and that's an unusual thing. You're not thinking about, okay, I got salmon. I've got to have a white wine. And so we want to share that and how that works with the people who are watching the various podcasts. So I'm thinking we should get 4 podcasts out of this: the red, the white, the rosé, the here I am. The experimental podcast.
Oh, right.
The experimental pairing, and that's what we'll just call that. This is the experimental pairing podcast.
Yeah.
So we'll get 4 out of that. This one, if it ever, if we decide to post it or whatever, but so we'll do that. And I guess I'm looking at maybe should we have 4 pairings per?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a manageable number. If we go much, obviously you got to keep it within some kind of time bounds. Too, I'd say a big part of what we could talk about first is cheeses too, because they're pretty easy to.
Yeah.
And people always want to have cheese with wine, and there's so many cheeses out there, and we have access to lots of cheeses. Just here locally, a wide array. There's the dough run people.
Yeah.
We've got the millers who make some cheeses here that we sell here. We've also got cheeses from. It's a restaurant company that sells these fancy cheeses. They bring a truck. They come by in a truck every so often. We can probably order some special cheeses just to play around with. But I think it's called a restaurant store. Sarah gets them, but these international cheeses. I mean, they're expensive. Obviously, if you buy them here in the wine, they're premium price cheeses. So we've got access to that too. So I think we could sit down and, especially for the experimental pairing, it's fun to throw different cheeses at different wines. But we don't have to stop there. But I'm just thinking about, how we do this, having to prepare a bunch of meals, every time we get together.
Right. So that's going to be the challenge.
We could
how
we could order a bunch of DoorDash. We could order like 4 deals on DoorDash.
Yeah.
But the problem is going to be though, is like during the, we're obviously talking in a lot of cases about kind of pairing fine dining dishes with wines. I don't know if we're going to have access to that, but cheeses can be a nice proxy to it. Maybe trying to think. We can do chocolate. I can take. I've done a lot of work on pairing chocolates. We can take the audience through how I get to that.
So that you bring up an interesting point. So you're talking about
that could be an interesting way to do it. Flipping it around, taking the food and then having different wines to pair with it, as opposed to the reds and the whites and the whatever. Because some of these things, like with salmon, you can go both ways.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, absolutely can go both ways.
And too, like salmon, that's something that we could have. You can buy that smoked salmon in the store and have that. That's a prepared food we can go buy and. With a tasting of having having to cook some kind of fancy meal.
I feel like we should do one podcast where we are actually preparing the food to show people that this is how that works. Because one of the things.
We're doing it at your house. We can prepare it every time. If you're doing the preparing and I'm doing the drinking while you prepare, man, we can do it every time.
Well, what are the things?
Serious, I would go to your house.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, one thing that I'm thinking is that, especially if we end up at the house, one of the things that we can do is have like clams, because I put white wine in clams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can put beer in clams, but white wine in clams actually it does bring it out, and you can drink the white wine along with the clams and that kind of scenario. But you were mentioning the fine dining. We may want to consider one podcast where we invite a few people, a select few, maybe no more than a dozen, maybe 6 to 8. We do that, and we have a pairing with food. Maybe we get food from a local restaurant, we could do anything from like a burger from 12's, or bolognese from Savannah Bistro. We could hit up local dishes that are
If we could find a local restaurant that would want to do this with us, that'd be super cool. Because what we have them do is prepare a small sampler from their menu, like pretty much all their menu, and we could go.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could find somebody who wants to do it with us or not.
Now, if American Wine Journey decided they wanted to do a spin-off in American Beer Journey, I think if we talk to the Melons at 12's, they may actually be interesting because I know they paired before.
They did. Yeah, no, could be good. Could be good. If we could, we're gonna need to get some additional wines too, because obviously what I've got here, I've got a certain style of wine. That's a style of wine I like to produce. I do think, to really inform the audience, we're gonna need to get some. I do think we want some semi-dry wines, because especially with spicy foods or when you're trying to pair with desserts, we want that. I think, a really common pairing is going to take an oak Chardonnay, so we get something like that from Waybun or from Chad's Ford or something like that. We could. So I think it's important to have a broader array than just because we're focused on that dry white.
Right.
Fruit forward, style with our whites, our reds.
Yeah.
Probably fit more in the traditional category, but my point is, whites too and rosés, you just go, there's just so much more things you can do with those pairing wise. Reds, you compare, they go with the wild stuff, but it's always meat. You look at anything, it's like, steak or lamb or whatever, right? And so we want to talk through all that. I'm thinking, especially once we get a broader array of whites and, we can get some sparklings. We've got a little bit of sparkling that we still work with. Chad's Ford's got a really nice sparkling right now, sparkling Simeon. And so that would be cool if we could go find if we could, I don't know if anyone would want to do that, but man, it would be cool if we get a sampler tray from, or just one of those kitchens. Say, hey, just give us a sampling of the menu you've got here, and we'll pair it with
some sliders, some,
Or if not, we'll just do it here. But we can do it at your house. You can make us some stuff.
Yeah, well, the back porch is certainly lends itself to to that.
Well, here, let's think this through a little bit. So if you're willing to cook I can smoke some meats. And smoked meats, obviously I can smoke some salmon, I can smoke some chicken and some stuff like that. I could bring that down to your house. You know what I'm saying? And cook some, and we have a great little mini spread.
Yeah, well, and I think
some cheeses, some pre-selected cheeses.
So so then we've got the full-on meal versus the appetizer and the dessert kind of scenario. So are we going to even get into what goes after like the dessert wine, and we haven't even talked about that until just like now.
We could.
Do we want to even go in there because there are different. Well, I had a blueberry wine at Renault in Jersey, and if you opened it up and waited 45 minutes, the smell and the taste of blueberries was all through that. I mean, you could have a nice blueberry cobbler, and that thing would be phenomenal.
No, some of those fruit wines can be real good when they're made with care. I've made some back in my home winemaking days and made some blueberry wine. Turned out really well. I think we can. I think that's just where we got to put a little thought into sourcing some of this stuff ahead of time. The wines. We have certainly got something. We're not making dessert wines here, but we can. There's a winery down in Maryland that I met the winemaker there when we had a conference here on spotted lanternfly control and a bunch of other stuff. And they've got an award-winning port down there I've been wanting to buy. It was the Port of Leonardtown, no pun intended, Port of Leonardtown Winery. Nice. And anyway, we come up with there's some local wines out there. And plus we can always go to, if we want to expand a little bit, we go to the liquor store, get some port, something like that. That's kind of one of my go-tos.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to focus a lot on local establishments. I think there, given that not everything grows in this area, we are limited because we might have to get a wine from out of the area.
I think it's a little bit that's okay. I'm kind of like you. Want to obviously showcase local stuff where we can, but I think we gotta. I'm real comfortable with painting a broader picture of this. We're trying to, I'll drink local where we can, but like when it gets to dessert wines. A true dessert wine. I mean, there are sweet wines around here, but I don't think anybody's making a true dessert wine. And a true like one that is like a late harvest Vidal or a port style
or ice wine.
That's what I'm saying. I don't see that anywhere around here.
They used to. I think there were a couple that used to.
But what we could do, we could get one of those from the Finger Lakes. Weimer, Armin Weimer is where I get a lot of my vines. They've got, their winemaker last year, Fred Murwath, was winemaker of the year, wine enthusiast, picked him as winemaker of the year. It was a worldwide accolade. They make some dessert wines. So yeah, we could get some regional stuff, right? I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to be all here in Chester County, but we can. I mean, especially if we just say, well, we'll focus on the East Coast. There's definitely, I think, a full complement of what we'd be needing to do to coach people on how to pair.
Right.
Soup to nuts, you know.
Okay, so now I've got 4 podcasts.
Yeah.
If we focus solely on the types of wine.
Well, the only thing I'm saying about that though is if we do more of a meal, I almost wonder if we can do it that way. You know, we all follow your lead, but if we focused on like the courses almost or something.
Yeah. Because
usually you're going to start with the food, and then people have an idea what they want to make, and then they put the wine with it. But I mean, we could do it that way around.
I totally agree. I mean, there's 2 different philosophies on how.
But if you want to do it one first, we can. That's easy enough too.
When we went to Vetri Cucina in the old bookbinders in Philadelphia, we opted to get the wine pairing tasting with and the sommelier came over, and honestly, God, we had 16 courses.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
And we had 16 different wines with that.
Yeah.
And it was really exceptional. It obviously it took a long time because that's it was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
We obviously don't want to do that long, but I get the drift of what you're saying. We could do it by the course.
Yeah,
versus the wine.
Yeah, or the type of food too. Like even with a steak, I got turned on how to do this somewhere out in Napa. But like you think steaks are only reds, but like there's certainly a class of Chardonnay out there that's buttered oak that you can actually pair with a steak, and it kind of works. You know,
can do it
because some people are like, well, my guests don't like red, and I want to offer a couple. And you typically get into one as a complimentary and one's a contrasting pairing, but you can you can go a couple different ways with dishes. Sometimes. Yeah,
well, and then so we'd have what we'd want to do, like you were saying with the chocolates, you open up, like, you're the classic, somebody walks in the room and your face is got chocolate on it and there's like 20 open boxes.
Oh yeah, you got a sugar high going that's not good, and just like you're already, my stomach's already not feeling good.
I don't even know how you do that.
I'm pretty sugar sensitive, just meaning that when I eat anything that's sweet, my face will get a little warm. And
really?
Yeah, I don't know what.
It's not an intolerance.
I don't know, but I just get real, almost, anyway, I can't eat a lot of sweets. And so by then I'm like, I'm just tired. I'll eat just the tiniest bite that I can to get it in my mouth, and then.
To make sure it goes together.
Yeah, because if you're going to charge somebody $20-something for pairing it damn sure better go together. This is the way I look at it.
You say that, and I think people who come here appreciate that, but not everybody does that. If you know what I'm saying, they just wine and chocolate, and they bring stuff together, and so they're just featuring their wine when they're not really thinking about it.
We could do it around we did it like around reds. We could, there's no reason why we can't do it that way too. I mean, obviously the protein sources are going to be pretty predictable, but
maybe we do both. I mean, and when I say, I said that earlier, we could stretch it out, and I think, people are, they're looking in both directions. They're actually going, I've got this good red, what do I put with it? But they're also going, I've got this protein, what do I put with it? Yeah. We haven't even talked about like vegan meals, and
definitely.
And bringing in, how do they pronounce it? It's biodynamic. By dynamic.
I was just saying
biodynamic.
But you're right.
So we could do the vegan pairing as well, because that, there's a lot of people, forget whether they're actually vegan or not. They have a vegan diet of sorts,
sure.
and maybe they want to know what pairs with it. And, not that we have an obligation to do that, but it would certainly perform a service of sorts.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I will say so much of the pairings that I get, I've seen it work both ways. So like the Neuchatel people always want, hey, what goes? People come in and want the wine, and they want the formula on the wine, which I'm happy to give them on the wine and chocolate pairings. But I tell you where I get people freaked out about, and anxious, talking about people needing help. It's almost any kind of holiday meal, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever.
Right.
And because you've got a semi-prescribed set of foods, that people expect at those meals.
Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, dressing, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Whether we want to do that or not, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like that's that is by far and away in terms of the tasting inquiries and interest they get. It's about that.
It's events. It's structure.
Because you've got somebody, the preparer is like really, they want to put on a first class event. They got a lot of people there. Some of the people in the on the invite list may be, pretty serious wine drinkers, and so, it's like everybody wants that to go well, right? When you entertain, especially if you don't entertain all the time, and so they're desperate for help, all that kind of stuff.
There you go. Are we ready for cup number 2? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I'll go make one. You want another one of those?
If you don't mind, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. We'll take a little break.
I'm still.
An espresso from from the trail.
Does yours use the little capsules?
The mini cap.
Let me get that, because I accidentally ordered those and I don't have a machine for them. Or I forget. Yeah, I ordered, I was in a hurry on Amazon and I ordered the wrong kind, so.
I hear you. Oh, that's pretty
I'll
cool.
call you by.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, sorry about it, I'm sure there's better ones out there.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
That's nice. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, dude. Glad, I'm glad I found somebody who could use them.
Found a home.
I mean, I'm too lazy trying to return anything with Amazon.
Yeah. Well, especially here,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's $30, but I'm like, it was just $30, but I'm like, fuck, I don't have time to fuck with that. If it's $300, like, yeah, I'll fuck with that, but.
I totally get it. So I really do like the event scenario because you're right. People they always inquire.
Yeah.
They're always looking for, okay, I want this to go perfect.
Yeah.
And what goes perfect with turkey and stuffing? What goes perfect with glazed ham?
Yeah, especially if when we time these, but especially if we're toward the fall, people really appreciate those fall pairings. But I think we could probably do one around a spring meal too, which then granted we have to this would be a little slightly made up. But let's say you're doing a baby shower or having a christening event or something, or a baptismal event in the spring. I just feel like a lot of people do that in the spring. You want a springy kind of meal. We can say, hey, look, especially if you're trying to do a local seafoody kind of thing, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
The fall is when people proactively are coming in here asking for. Usually, what I'll do is come up with a little cheat sheet, which won't go nearly as far as what we're about to do. And plus, people in this format can get educated. I mean, but they're desperate in the fall, in particular with Christmas and Thanksgiving. They're desperate for help.
Could even do because a lot of folks celebrate Easter as well, and and there's lamb at Easter.
There you go.
And you could flip it either. You could actually go in any direction with wine. You could go with a white rosé or a red.
Sure could.
With a lamb.
And see, that's what people are looking for, because they're going to have people there that are pretty serious wine drinkers, which will typically going to gravitate to a red, but you've got some people that love that of a pink wine, and because you've got this mix of people, they need options, because you're going to have somebody in the crowd, and again, there's nothing wrong with this, so I don't drink red wine, or rosé, that sounds so nice, because again, that's what they like, and again, you've got people across a very wide spectrum of wine drinking.
So you could provide several that pair with,
that's what I'm saying.
Which is good. It's a great idea. So we could actually show, like, you bring out the lamb from the oven kind of thing, and then everybody gets and then you taste the 3 different wines with it. That is a great idea.
Yeah.
Now my mind is spinning. So if
you have a few sides and stuff there too, kind of talk about whatever you'd serve before and after, and have a dessert thing too, so you can do all that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, because sometimes people don't know what sides to do. Now we're in the restaurant business.
Well, sure, we don't have to take it that far. That's a good question. Do we just focus on the main thing, or which, a lot of people, obviously, that's when you go to a restaurant, most of us don't order 4 or 5 bottles of wine. You got to kind of pick one, and you typically pick something that hopefully goes with your main course, or more importantly, it's something both you and your spouse or partner will both drink.
If you're ordering a bottle,
Well, Sarah and I, it's usually, back in the old days, didn't drink a lot of white wine before I got into this business, and so we would always get a rosé, because Sarah didn't drink a lot of red, although ironically now that we're in the wine business, I do drink a lot more white. Sarah drinks some reds occasionally, but she's probably...
It's all about that taste bud thing.
It is. It's how many you got on your mouth. It comes down to tolerance for tannins.
I never knew that. Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's when you think back through your life, you're like, women definitely tend to be more sensitive to food because they have more taste buds. It's not a sexist thing. No. It's just a taste bud thing.
We do have biological differences, which should be celebrated.
Occasionally a difference. But but that's. So that highlights one of the things. If you're talking about doing a white, a rosé, and a red for the same horse, that highlights the understanding that, hey, this is a pairing. It's not about the wine; it's about the pairing and how that works. And people don't realize that. So the more you go to different wineries, and the more because we've been to different places, like around the world and whatnot. I probably had at least 8 different, significantly different rosés.
Oh yeah.
And people just think, it's rosé.
No, it's very different stuff.
And from the very sweet to the very dry, to the bold, to the barely rosé, to this is kind of a white wine. But there's all these differentials just in rosés. And to highlight that and to show them, okay, so if you're going to pick a rosé, this is what you're going to look for when you're picking a rosé in order for it to go with. This
that's right. At the end of the day, there's 3 things in wine that affect the pairing. One is the sweetness or the perception of sweetness. The wine can be dry, but especially if it's higher alcohol content, can certainly have a perception of sweetness. It's the level of tannin, which is obviously what makes your mouth pucker a little bit with coffee and things like that. Right. And then it's the acidity, and all those things, have far-reaching implications for how it's going to pair with the food. And you could take an acidic wine and pair it with an acidic dish; it'll almost always go well. You can take a sweet wine and pair it with a spicy dish, and because it's contrasting, that'll go well. But then there's some things that won't pair well, which is like a red wine with a very acidic dish typically doesn't work that well. It just doesn't,
Right.
you know. And
Right.
so, but that's really what it comes down to, is just playing up the, understanding the acidity and the fattiness. Fats and tannins go really well together, which is why tannic red wines are almost
Yeah.
always with fatty food. But again, there's the Chardonnay works with it as well too.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's just a lot that we can do.
So
for sure.
there's a lot of experimental. So we got to figure out, all right, so what's our, I'm thinking either May or June if you want to do something, because we're doing the joint wine tasting in April with the 3 wineries. So I'll have to land on the location, but at least we've got the date and time. So, and we got everybody's in, so we're good to go on that. I've confirmed with everybody that they're going to be there. I have to do a little reminder and say, make sure, don't forget it's on your calendar. And by the way, should we have it? But we're going to be doing that, so we want to put a little bit of distance. So, obviously May is, some good distance. But if you wanted to have it in June, you could have it in June, depending on the schedule. I mean, your schedule, my schedule, and the...
May or June would be fine. We could do it, if we did it then, if we do it around a meal, we could do it around some sort of summery kind of dish. Are you talking about like clam bake or something like that? Or, not that we don't eat those things here all the time, but I think, and then, so we do one there. We have to decide what the focal point of it is. But then as we get into, if we did one in, September or something like that, I would definitely do it around Thanksgiving. We ought to do one on Thanksgiving and one on Christmas. Not on those days.
No, I totally got it. Not on Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Because that
won't do you any good.
But if you even do a month or two in advance, I think it's good because, these are the kinds of things that friends forward to friends and stuff. And so my point being is, you did one relatively early in the fall for Thanksgiving. It gives people time to watch it, and when they're a week or two later, when they're talking with their friends, and maybe this podcast thing, and it kind of gives it enough time to really get in a rotation for the meal. But just a thought.
Yeah, and I think definitely. So it's going to be interesting because Christmas and Thanksgiving are back to back.
Yeah.
So, do we do Christmas just before Thanksgiving? To give that time for planning. Because Thanksgiving or Christmas has its own dynamic.
Yeah.
Do people eat cranberries, homemade cranberries?
I don't know.
My dad makes it.
I mean, we could do it we could do it immediately after Thanksgiving too. I don't know. It's totally up to you.
So we need, but I guess the key is give it enough time so that people can actually utilize it to plan.
Hopefully forward it around a little bit
for
too.
that, what would be fun with that is once we've done it, we can like share it on different area stuff, like the West Grove message board and that kind of stuff. So we could actually share it and say, hey,
this sounds a little self-serving too. If we get it out there early enough, then somebody might pick it up on a local outlet and want to interview with us or something like that. There's a follow-up.
It could happen.
It's good.
But because the key here is I think ultimately the goal is to help people understand wine more and to get an understanding of what they're doing with their wine, and not just pull one off the shelf or out of the wine cellar.
Asking the poor person at the liquor store who probably doesn't know.
Yeah, that's a classic. Although I have met some people.
Yeah, no, there are some.
In our state stores here in Pennsylvania, I met a guy and he's like, yeah, so if and he starts rattling stuff off, and he runs over and he grabs a bottle. He goes, "This is what you want," and I'm like, "Dude, I was not expecting."
You get all kinds, man. No, it's great.
But most of them. I mean, it's a job.
It's a job. No, they're very friendly and helpful and all those things, but
it's not like they're a sommelier at a fine restaurant. Which, by the way, a lot of people don't realize. You go to Olive Garden, they're probably not going to have a sommelier.
Yeah.
But you go to Savannah Bistro is in between that upscale and they're definitely way above an Olive Garden. But you go to places, they have a sommelier.
Yeah.
They have someone on staff that actually can assist with your meal and selecting a wine.
For sure.
So if you're out and about and you're in a restaurant,
Yeah.
does this restaurant have a sommelier? Now, if you're at Chili's,
Yeah.
probably not going to have a sommelier,
Probably not.
but you never know. You may have somebody who's studying to be a sommelier so that they can actually bounce into the next level,
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. There's a little, there was a woman that worked for us here in the tasting room, and she worked at La Casa Pasta down in Newark, which I think is a pasta restaurant, but she had gotten her sommelier certification.
Right.
Yeah, and actually Fred Dane, who's now been disgraced, but he actually was the proctor on the exam. Fred was he established that court of sommeliers.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of a scandal, sadly, but nonetheless, a very knowledgeable guy in the wine world, even
right.
though he's not really welcome in the wine world anymore. But anyway, I thought this was really cool. So there she is in a pasta restaurant.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
she and her husband moved down to Maryland for his work, and so I'm saying you will occasionally get people that have a real enthusiasm for wine and maybe working in a kind of just a regular restaurant, that can help a little bit.
I've tried to chase Diane down that path.
Yeah.
Because her palate is incredible when it comes to wine.
Yeah.
And she's really good at it. And I was like, hey, why don't you just try and make it official, But
yeah.
she's like, I think when you become a sommelier, it's more like, okay, now I've got to work.
You do.
It's just fun.
There's a lot of memorization too. Yeah. A lot of that's a written test, and you got to memorize all these classifications and all these old world wine regions. And but I'm not saying it's not interesting, but you really there's a part of it that goes from having a great palate to just having to do a lot of memorization work that may or may not be.
But that's what
interesting. Some people would really like that. I'm just saying some people probably don't.
But here's where we come in.
Yeah.
Where we say, okay, we're going to offer a little bit of, some. Here's some thoughts.
Yeah, break it down. Yeah, break it down for them.
And I think some event scenarios, and maybe we do both. Maybe we do reds, whites, rosés, and we do events. But I think the events are huge. And
I think we could start the summer one maybe with just based on a wine type, like or maybe it's whites and rosés or something.
Yeah.
Just to kind of. But then when we get in the fall, I think it's definitely around the events.
So maybe in the we could. Maybe in the summer, it's a barbecue.
I tell you what, for sure, absolutely. We could do we could do it around just smoked and grilled foods. Man, this would be definitely a stretch for me because I'm not that familiar with the cuisine. But we got a bunch of Jewish holidays that come up, kind of in the mid-fall, and I have to get some of our Jewish friends to cook the food for us because I don't know how to cook a lot of that stuff.
Right.
But, I don't know how to cook any of that shit.
But then, if you're going there, then there's like Indian food and which the stuff that a lot of people don't necessarily use in a lot of those seasonings that they don't use. Well, now it's a lot of people go to Indian restaurants or Pakistani restaurants or Ethiopian restaurants.
Well, the reason that's a good one is fun to watch. The wine world, and it. I would tell you that it's increasingly a demographic that is interested in wine. And obviously, wine is not drink you see a lot in India. It's not something that most folks that grew up in India drank because it's just not rum and beer and sure, absolutely, there's all sorts of forms of alcohol, but wine's not, just like if you go to Jamaica, it's not a wine producing country, it's just, but my point being is...
Really? I thought Jamaica had a rum wine.
There you go. But my point being is that there's a group of folks there that are increasingly interested in wine, and I think that's a cool part of what we can do is bridge cultures, and...
so that goes in both directions, by the way.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of people who are interested in Indian food.
Absolutely.
And
but drink a lot of wine.
But they're used to drinking wine, so they want to. So I want to do this new experimental dinner with this dish, and and by the way, kebabs
Sure.
huge in Central Asia. I mean, kebabs are
especially we're talking kind of like Persian influenced food. For sure. And that stuff goes well with wine. And back in the day, there was a lot of wine production there. Sadly, with the current regime in that part of the world, there's not. But those foods are actually really easy and fun to pair with wines. I've got a bunch of friends of mine that are Persian, and all those yogurt marinated meats, they are.
Oh my God! When we were
they're really, really good.
My first dinner in Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in Kyrgyzstan. We all go to this restaurant. It's in the middle of winter, so there's plenty of room at the restaurant because nobody's going out, and it's cold, and so we go out there and we order 2 trays of kebabs.
Yeah.
Now the trays probably, so what's that, about 20 inches or so?
Yeah.
And they're filled with, so they bring, boom, and this is chicken, this is rabbit, right?
Yeah.
And so 8 sets of hands goes towards the chicken, and I'm the only one going for the rabbit, because I'm like, I gotta try this.
Oh yeah, no, I ate it up.
It was really
no,
good. So
excellent.
I almost had it all to myself. People were like,
trust me, the rabbit's infinitely better than that damn chicken, but I'm sure their chicken's good.
Well, chicken in Kyrgyzstan, it's just, it's one of those things that you're not thinking about, but
exactly.
Rabbit in Kyrgyzstan, on the other hand,
it's great.
Good.
It's great, but that's just a different angle we can go. I mean, my point being, man, we could just go on and on. I mean, there's a limitless array of things that we can talk about with wine and food. But the whole, getting into, all food is inherently ethnic food, and it came from some culture. But if we think about foods outside of the, kind of European culture that most of us are kind of.
But here in the U.S., we have no ethnicity, right? That's people get so interesting about. But I think that's fantastic. But I'd actually think we should do both, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think we should do the wines, and then I think we should pick a series of events.
Yeah, and or themed meals. Like you said, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas.
That's what I mean by themed meals.
We're doing Indian food.
We're doing Indian food. We're doing kebabs. We're doing barbecue.
We're smoking ribs.
We're doing cheeses, we're doing chocolates, we're doing, and then you pick the Thanksgiving, the Christmas, and the, that kind of scenario. And I think there's a lot there, and I think people, if we do, particularly the theme-based or the event-based, what it'll be is, and I think they're all basically theme-based if you think about it. Even Thanksgiving is theme-based because it's pretty much turkey.
Theme. It's turkey.
Either turkey or ham.
And stuffing and
so. You pick those, and then people can go back and go, oh, let me see what they paired with it on this, and then we can talk about, we can have a variety of wines that pair with that. And so that we can offer people, and they're going,
I think that's right, because I think you do have people that have a bunch of this wine or that wine or whatever and want to back into it that way, especially if. I think people come at it from, hey, I've got this wine, it's about Game of Wine, it's probably a nicer wine, and so they're anxious, like, hey, it's my spouse or, people at work chipped in and got me this really nice wine because, I'm retired, whatever, right? There's even reasons people give gifts.
Right.
But I think when they've got that really nice wine, they definitely want to then design the meal around it. But then there's also a number of, I'll just call them, like you said, events or theme-based dinners where we want to do seafood, or in particular fresh seafood. People want to do, around here, they want to do shellfish, crabs are the thing, and then you've got Christmas and, all that stuff. And you can do one around New Year's. I mean, there are a handful of foods that seem to be thematic for New Year's. I don't know. Black-eyed peas was always one growing up.
I could do Super Bowl wine.
Oh no, that one's a good one. Yes, that's a great. And you can almost genericize it into Super Bowl for sure. We should do it around the Super Bowl. But there's that
wings and pizza.
Well, there's that whole a whole sporting event. Football food, right? That's the thing. In the fall, you've got whether it's a Super Bowl or whether it's the Eagles are playing the Cowboys on Monday night, and you want to have a big party, or maybe they're playing on Sunday night. Even better time to have a party, and you want to say, and you want to have some.
Because you can drink beer at a football game, and that's probably the more obvious choice of alcoholic beverages, but there are still a lot of wine drinkers who go unsatisfied at
That's
football
right.
games.
That's right. Yeah.
So if we can provide that, that in knowledge that people go, oh well, I'm going to bring this because it'll pair with, and we make all sorts of things. Which ridiculously crazy dish that we do is we'll take Dorito chips and we'll put jalapenos and cheese, sharp cheese, extra sharp cheese, on the jalapeno chip, and then bake it.
Yeah.
And it comes out. It's like, and it doesn't. So it's what's interesting about it is it doesn't taste like a typical Dorito chip anymore. It tastes. There's a little bit of that flavoring in it, but the flavoring of the Dorito chip is not the all-powerful scenario. Which is cool. But yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a great one. The football pairing around football. We could do other events.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
But sports events, and then we can, I think, so events. We have sports, we have barbecues, we have Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, and Friendsgiving together, and
Could
New
do a
Year's Eve.
spring picnic thing, picnic basket.
New Year's Eve is all finger food for the most part. I mean, some people go out to dinner, but a lot of times if you're there from like 10 o'clock on, it's all finger food. So you're talking anything from, I don't know, chicken fingers to, we could pair with Chick-fil-A for crying out loud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can pair anything,
You can.
It's just a question of finding the right one.
It is. You got to work that a little bit, but you pair anything. Sushi's another one. It's fun to pair with. Let me see, there's themed meals. There's many of which are affiliated with the holiday, but then there's just, as we were saying, just like Indian food or
that's a great idea.
Japanese
Sushi
food.
is good. Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's a little tricky to pair. It definitely can be paired, but my point is that it's just not something you can just. It requires. I think people would benefit from some insight on how to pair sushi.
I mean,
it's not the easiest one in the world to pair with.
It's very difficult, actually. Yeah. I mean, and sushi is one of those scenarios where you can pair red or white with it.
You can.
And people are like, because there's a fair amount of flavor in.
Well, there is. And of course, there's lots of different kinds of sushi. I mean, obviously, when you go on the menu, there's, so sushi's a pretty broad category. I mean, yes, it's fish mostly, and rice and seaweed.
They do have the California sushi for people who don't.
That's true, and that's the thing. And many are spicy, but some are creamy, and so.
So you can, and raw fish is a little bit trickier, like you said, but we can do that. I think we have, that's a lot of different
ones, man.
A lot of different scenarios. So if we're doing our first one in May, which one do we focus on? Where do we start?
I would say we either start with wine and chocolate, chocolate and cheese. We could do one on those two, so it's not just about cheese, it's chocolates and cheese. Or if you want to go the wine route, spring's when everybody loves to drink rosés. We could start with rosés and then talk about different pairings with rosés.
Okay, so we'll get
You getting wet?
Not really.
Yeah. It should be cool.
It's actually pretty neat to.
I know, it's like I said, I figured it's a lot of fun to sit here and it's a little boring.
I mean, they get the benefit, watching this. If that is if we post it, but I think it's a pretty good. We'll probably be able to post it, but that may be the way to start is the rosés, because you're not quite in. People, are gonna. Summer food is really good with white wine.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically.
Yeah, for sure.
It's when you're talking about red wine in the summer, you might want to be indoors in the air conditioning, because it's hard to drink a red. I mean, I'll drink a red until it gets to like 90 degrees. And once it gets to 90 degrees,
so nobody likes drinking. Well, if you're drinking them outside, let's say you serve it at 65 degrees, but it's going to be at 80 degrees before you know it, and it's just not going to taste good.
It's not the same.
And versus, let's say you start a white, which this would be colder than I would normally serve it, but let's say you pour it at 37 or 8, which to me is a little too cold, but like, that wine's going to taste really good all the way up to about 50, 55 degrees. My point being is in the summer, you can have a white wine and sip it and enjoy it. And yes, the temperature will rise, but if you start it slightly colder than what you normally serve it and you finish it maybe slightly warmer, it's just it's going to handle that hot temperature a lot better versus reds. You start at and at it's already pretty warm, and it just sucks. Red wine just sucks at 85 degrees.
It gets a little rough.
I don't care whose it is or how much you pay for it. Red wine doesn't taste good at 85
Not when
degrees.
it gets hot.
Yeah.
Not when it gets hot.
I'm saying when the temperature of the beverage gets quite we're just gonna rise fast out there, especially since it's dark. It's drawing in all that heat, from the sunshine, just heating it up.
It's not like coffee, you can drink it cold or hot.
No, it's not.
Wine is very specific to that. All right, so we start with the May rosé. We'll settle on 4 different rosés, and maybe light, bold, and one end, and one. Then we'll pick. I don't know how you feel about. We can pick a sweet one, but that's more like I think we should keep the sweet ones to like its own category. If we're going to do a sweet wine,
I think
this is how you pair a sweet wine.
We've got I've got I don't think we need to go buy or go get a truly sweet one. I've got a 22 that I can pull out. We won't have released it yet. That has the perception of sweetness. It's a bone dry wine, but and then I say we go get like Wayvine makes a really good. Their rosé that they make at Carmine's real nice.
Oh yeah, I've had theirs.
And so they're between. I've got a sparkling. I've got a one that's it was a whole cluster press, but we blended in some barrel aged wine with it. I've got one that's that actually has a perception of sweetness, and then you throw in his. His is a very different style, and so.
Okay.
Anyway, I think we have 4 we could work with there real easy.
Okay, so then we just have to pick the date, is it, May or June kind of thing. I've got some stuff in May, but not a lot.
Yeah.
We'll go back and forth off camera.
That sounds good.
Pick a date, and then we'll figure out the other events, as we go. But I think we're settled on having Thanksgiving. I think people spend more time planning Thanksgiving than they do Christmas. So we may want to do that one in September to give them extra time.
And then we just do the Christmas one.
And then we'll post it, and then the Christmas one. I think you're right. We could do that literally the weekend after, or the Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's right.
Or the weekend after that. We can at the latest, like the first weekend in December.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So let's look at our calendar, see if we can lock those in or not.
Yeah.
September, we want to make sure that we can, because I know September gets critical around here.
Yeah, well, we'll also do it early September. I just have to do it first 2 weekends of September.
Okay.
After that, I'm picking.
Okay, yeah. So we're not going to, the first weekend in September is going to be Labor Day.
Yeah, so we'll
maybe the weekend after that.
Sounds good.
We'll lock that in. I'll throw some dates out, and then we'll go from there.
That sounds good, man.
Cool.
All right. Awesome.
This has been good.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. I mean, and the dates aren't bad either.
Yes, it's cozy to sit here.
Even raining, it's pretty nice.
No, it creates a coziness for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. All right,
Awesome,
we'll call that a wrap.
All right, cool.
And,
Very good.